Hey, welcome back to my channel, and today we're going to be playing some more chess. And last video I showed off some fairy chess pieces I made up, and today I'm going to show off some chess variants I made up. A fairy chess piece is a chess piece not used in standard chess, and a chess variant is, well, any rule change to standard chess. But there can be as many rule changes as you want, as long as it still is somewhat like chess. Like Monopoly does not count. So last video the chessboard was a little bigger. Sometimes it cooperates and allows me to make it bigger, and sometimes it doesn't. This time it didn't, so sorry about that. Anyway, we're going to start off with the first chess variant, and we're doing 3 chess variants. So the first one is an asymmetric chess variant. So if you look up at the black side, their pieces are perfectly normal. But then on the white side, some of the pieces are different. So first of all, none of the pieces that I showed in the last video are going to be in these variants, which, yes, it makes the last video very helpful for this video. I know. I think those pieces just aren't very fun, but I wanted to show off some original pieces, but that doesn't even make sense because only one of the ones last video was original. But anyway, ignoring that, we're just going to start. So this is the first new piece. This is the Duke, and these are both from the same variant, both of the new ones, and I'll say which variant it is in a second, which variant that someone else made. So the Duke moves just like a queen, so it's literally exactly the same as a queen, except it can only capture like a king, so in this small radius. So it cannot capture this pawn right now because it can only capture like a king. But if this pawn was here, for example, it could capture that. So see how this works? And in the variant, it's said to be worth slightly less than a rook. But I'm just going to say it's worth a rook for simplicity. So this piece is worth 5 points. But now, ignoring the obvious other new piece, which you might guess is going to fix the balancing and make both armies equal, you might say this isn't a very good variant because black has a huge advantage. They have an extra 4 points because this is worth 5 and this is worth 9, so that's an extra 4 points. So unless you're going up against someone who's worse than you, it's not very fair. But of course, that's where the second new piece comes in, which is the soldier. Now, in a lot of variants, the soldier is just like the pawn, but it moves and captures forward. So a pawn captures diagonally like this, but still moves forward. But the soldier would capture forward. So, like, if they started like this, and they went like this, you can just take here. Free pawn, thank you very much. I don't know if that would be a good gambit or not, but so the point is they could just take. But this is not what this is. So what the soldier is it's just like the pawn. It can move 2 squares on the first move, but it can also move not only a square forward or 2 if it's the first move, it can also move sideways 1 square, and it can capture the same way it moves, so it captures forwards, and it can move and attack sideways. So this is obviously stronger than a pawn. And with all those extra abilities, you might think it's a lot stronger than the pawn, and it might actually be. But for some reason, I'm just getting the vibe that it's only 1.5 points, so that's what I put it at. I think the reason for this is it can't do anything diagonally, which I think is a big nerf. But I don't know if that's actually accurate. There's a good chance it's a little more, but we're just going to go with that. So then if you add up the values, 0.5 times 8, or 0.5 if you want to be more accurate, although people who are being more accurate say 5/10, so I'm still not being accurate, whatever, doesn't matter. So if you add that all up, it's actually 4 points. Exactly how much less the Duke is worth than the Queen, so that makes these perfectly equal if my valuing wasn't inaccurate at all, which it obviously is. So if you just imagine my valuing is perfectly accurate, then these are perfectly equal. And even if it's not, well, except for weight has a starting advantage. But if you ignore that, these will be perfectly equal. So I think this is actually a pretty cool asymmetric army, and I haven't tried, I've only tried one of the variants in this video, so I haven't tried this yet. But it looks pretty fun. I'll probably try it pretty soon. So we're just going to play a little bit of a starting game to just see how it will go. So I'll just move my central pawn. And I'm not going to do this gambit because that just seems a little complicated. We're going to go simple. And we're going to play this. So we're already attacking the pawn. Now this brings up an interesting question. If you can move twice on the first move, like this, then does that mean you can move twice in any direction, like this? Or even just, if this was moved, go like this? Well, I don't think so. I think it should only be forward. But that would make for quite an interesting variant if you could go like that. And then I could just defend like this. But no, we're not doing that. So anyway, perhaps a good way to defend would be like this. Oh, wait, would that... Yeah, I think this is a good way to defend because it depends the pawn, because this attacks sideways and moves sideways. So now it's also attacking this pawn, but then the queen could just take back. You might still want to do that, though. In fact, you probably would because it gets the queen into the center. But anyway, then... they go like this. So they could move forward like this, attacking the knight, but then the knight just takes. Because, of course, this is not a queen, so it cannot move like that. Anyway, I think we've played enough of this variant. We're not doing a full gameplay video on each of these because that would take ages, and I don't have time for that. So let's move on to the next variant, which I need to set all the way up again from scratch because it's on a different board size and doesn't use any of these pieces. So that's quite annoying, but I'm not going to complain too much. So I'll just hit this flag button, and that removes all of the clones. All of my hard work gone. I said I wasn't going to complain, so I won't. Alright, I'm just going to set this up, and then I'll be back when it's ready. So I'm back, and it's actually the next day because I realized I had some homework to do, and I wouldn't have time to do it all in one day. But I'm going to try to finish it to finish the video today. So we're moving on to the next thing. And this one is played on a 9x8 board, so that's why the knight and bishop on one side are swapped. It's so the bishops are in different colors, and also so it plays more like standard chess. In the other one, they were also swapped because somehow I got confused and thought that one was a 9x8 board, but it's not, so that wasn't how it was supposed to be, but it is how it was there. So if I ever play that variant as a video, then it won't be like that. So anyway, once again, this time there's 3 new pieces actually, so I'm going to just explain how they move. So this one is the jester, and this one moves like the last piece to move. So they move a pawn like this. This moves like a pawn, so it takes. They move a knight. This moves like a knight. They take this with the pawn. This one can't move because it moves like a pawn. They move a knight. This one moves like a knight. And then how does this one move? Well, because the last piece to move moved like a knight, this piece still moves like a knight. So you see how it works? It's really cool, and I have no idea how much it's worth. But that's part of the fun. And its value, even if I did know, is very dependent on what pieces are on the board. Because if there's only pawns on the board, it can only ever move like a pawn. Actually, something I didn't think about is if it moves like a pawn to the end of the board, does it promote? I think it would be kind of cool if it did, so yeah, let's say it does. So that's the jester. The next one is the archbishop, so we'll just bring these on the board. Not the archbishop, this is the chancellor. Okay, well, so this just simply moves like a rook and the knight. Very simple, very easy. Alright, next piece is the archbishop. This one moves like a bishop and a knight. Yeah, these ones aren't super interesting, but they are pretty fun pieces, especially the archbishop. I really like it. So, yeah. But now, first of all, this one's called Just a Sirwan chess, and the Sirwan part might not make that much sense right now. I'll explain in a second if you don't know what Sirwan chess is. I just realized the first one doesn't have a name, so comment what name you want to give it in the comments. Anyway, so here's how it works. So, in normal Sirwan chess, this is a hawk, and this is an elephant. Right now, they're Archbishop and Chancellor. I might make a hawk and elephant sprite later. So, yeah. But the first time you move a non-pawn piece, like, let's say we just boom, 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 yada, yada, yada. So they just play the game. But then, they want to do this so they can get their bishop out. And then they do, I don't know, just something random. Then they move their bishop to here, even though I don't think that's a great move. Maybe it is. Then, on the same turn, they can place either their archbishop or their chancellor on that square. But, let's say they move their bishop there, and then they don't place it, and then their opponent goes there, moves the pawn. Then on this turn, they cannot do that because it needs to be the same turn. So, you see how it works? Now, another rule is, so let's say they did move that there, and then they placed their archbishop, and then, I don't know, black does just whatever. Then they move their archbishop here for whatever reason. Then, on the same turn, they cannot place also their chancellor. You cannot place one of these pieces behind another one of these pieces. So, see? You can behind the jester, though. So, it's not specifically fairy pieces. But, so, I'm going to step back up the board and then I'll explain why this combination of variants is good. Also, standard Sirwan chess is played with a normal chess setup, except for that dropping rule on a 8x8 board. This is just a variant of that variant. So, just put those back. Alright, so now, let's just, well, no, not play a few moves, because I still gotta explain why it's a good variant. So, the jester is more fun the more pieces there are. But if you just played without the extra pieces, then it's just chess with no queen, which is gonna make it less fun. But if you add the new pieces, it will make it more fun. So, see, this is a way of making the jester a little more fun, and I think it's fine without the extra new pieces, and I don't even know if this actually makes it more fun, but I think this is a pretty interesting combination. So let's play a few moves and see what happens. And the jester is like the main piece of this. The Sirwan pieces are just to make the jester more fun. So we go like this, and they go like that, and then we go like this, and then they don't have to defend with the knight because they can defend with the jester like this, and see, because if they take with the knight, then they'll move like a knight again so they can take back. Isn't that interesting? So this knight move kind of blocks in one of the jesters, so I don't know if that's actually good. So that's quite interesting. But moving this knight actually doesn't, so yeah. But anyway, so for the next move, we can just go here and now see, because we're attacking this pawn, if they ever move a bishop, we can just take their pawn, because this won't move like a knight, so we can't take back. And see how fast this gets interesting? So anyway, that's enough of the teaser for this variant. So we'll move on to the last variant. And we actually didn't end up placing any of the new pieces, but that's perfectly fine. Once again, remember my hard work. And I'll set it up. So mid-setup, and can you guess what new pieces are going to be added? Alright, so I've set up the third and final variant, and I actually managed to get it to let me zoom it in all the way this time, which is perfect because this one is so big that I had to make the pieces and board slightly smaller. So this is double castle chess. So you know those chess variants? Well, you probably don't if you don't spend a lot of time thinking about chess variants. But there's a chess variant where the board is way longer and it has like double the pieces on it. So 16 by 8, and then they just have all the pieces again. Yep. And then there's some that are like slightly shorter and don't include the king, and maybe also don't include the queen. But the problem with them is when you have it like that, if you have two rooks on one side, then it's hard to tell which one you castle with. So that gave me the great idea for this chess variant, double castle chess, where how it works is, so let's play some moves. And then you castle just like you would normally, and then the game continues. Let's say both players castle. Then you take this out. Move that there. And then look, you castle again. And that is why it's called, oh wait, I think the king is supposed to go 3 squares. Or wait, no, I think it's supposed to only go 2 squares. There we go. So this is why it's called double castle chess. You can castle twice, which I think is pretty cool. And other than that, the normal rules for castling apply. So isn't that such a cool variant? Now, there's one thing that I would like to address if I reset the board, which will take a while because I had to play a lot of moves for that. Oh yeah, also this is only one with no new pieces, just the normal ones with a cool rule. I can't speak. Just the normal ones with a cool rule. Alright, I've now set it back up. So what you may or may not have noticed, and congratulations if you did, is the bishops and knights on the edge of the board are swapped. Sort of like in the last one where one half of them were swapped. But the reason for it this time is totally different. So the bishop here is on the edge, and the knight is next to the rook that's put there in standard chess. So the reason for this is, let's just make it the other way real quick. So you just play the most basic move that people play, e4, e5, or whatever would be in this range. You know what, let's just see for fun, as a fun exercise. A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H. H4, H5. That just sounds so crazy to say. You could actually play that in standard chess, though. Anyway, so H4, H5. Then, look, so actually, black doesn't want to play H5, because if they do, white can immediately just do this. Boom, takes, and wait. Well, I only swapped the ones for white, so if we did do this properly, then boom, takes, and look, they can't recapture. Wait. They literally can with this knight. Did I just never notice that? That is insane. They literally can just recapture with the knight. But what I was going to say is they can't recapture, and this rook is completely stuck, so you can just take the rook, and I don't even think, well, no, you can defend the rook like this, but it's still a win of material. So they just take, they retake, bingo bango. But I literally never noticed that literally the knight can just recapture. That is insane. And the funny thing is I literally played this variant once. This is the only one I played, and yeah, I missed such an obvious thing. And yeah, I missed such an obvious thing. That is insane. I cannot believe that. Well, then now I don't know which way is better, because honestly, I kind of noticed that if you have it the way I just had it, another benefit is if you just play like so, boom, 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 just playing a few moves to get to the position. Then you go like this, then I don't know, like that, and then you gotta defend it like this. Then they play some random move just so I can show this. You just go like, oh wait, wrong side. So they play this instead. Wait, what do I even, no. It's supposed to be like this, and boom, boom. Alright, so this is the position I need. Because then look, easy bishop batteries. But then if it's the other way, give me a second to change it. I'm having to go back and forth so much. Okay, anyway, if it's the other way and we just play some moves. So like this, and then you can't do this because they're on opposite colors. But actually, I think that doesn't really matter, because if they just go like that, there's a bishop battery, so you get it anyway. Oh, but it's guarded by the central pawn. So if you do the e4, e5, it doesn't really work. But what about going the other way? So if we go and move this here instead. Oh, you can get this though, so it just makes central, it just makes, not central, it just makes bishop batteries slightly harder. I just don't know anymore which way is better. I can't believe I didn't notice that, but this was not supposed to be the main focus. The main focus was just the variant itself. I think it's a really cool idea, and I played a game of this, and it was actually pretty fun. One thing I did notice, though, is that the games take longer than standard chess because there's just more pieces on the board, so it might not be the best thing to do a YouTube video playing because it will take longer. And also, I already played it. Like, I want to try playing new variants instead of just the same one again. But anyway, so that is all 3 variants, but I do need to say some things before the video ends, so don't leave yet. Alright, so first of all, I need to ask a few comments. So if my next video is chess, which it may not be, then you gotta tell me, do you want me to play a variant or just do more showcases of variants? And if you want me to play a variant, which one of these variants do you want me to play, or do you want me to play a completely different variant that you made up, or just a variant that already exists? Because I could do that too, and there's a really good chance that, unless it doesn't sound fun at all to me, I'll do whatever you say in the comments, because I'll only get like 1 comment anyway. And I want to encourage more comments, so yeah. And most things I would be fine doing. And also, what do you think the first variant should be named? The one where the asymmetric variant, where one side has soldiers as pawns and a duke as a queen. So then, The next thing is please comment. I love getting comments. And also, consider liking and subscribing if you can too. I would also appreciate that. And then the last thing I would like to say, and this might take a little bit of more time, so if you just came for the chest part, then you can leave. I give you permission. But so basically, I'm kind of just really impressed with how well the last one did. I really didn't think chest would do good at all. I thought it would get like 10 views or something, but it got 65 at the time of recording this, which is quite a bit of views. And it got 1 like. Still no comments, which I'm a little sad about, but I thought it was going to get like 10 views, so that's really good. And I think I came up with this idea that how I would get around my interest changing, so changing what game I like. I could just play one game as my main game and then play other games every once in a while. So I was thinking Geometry Dash because it allows me to be creative, which I would need for a main game, since you can like build cool levels and stuff. And also it's incredibly popular, so I'll get tons of comments, which is exactly what I want, and I'll also grow faster. But now that I realize chess doesn't do so bad, that's also an option, or I could do both, so not really sure. But anyway, goodbye.